Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 561st New Social Environment. I'm Eleanor, the program's assistant here at the Rail, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a conversation featuring Rosa Barba and Francesca Pietropaolo. And we're also thrilled to welcome poet Lynn Xu here to close today's program. Before we get started, the Brooklyn Rail acknowledges that Black Lives Matter. Here in New York, we are on Lenape-Hoking, the unceded land and waters of the Wappinger, Canarsie, Munsee, and Lenni Lenape people of the Delaware Nation and the Shinnecock Indian Nation. We encourage you to check the chat for a living document of resources and actions. And today's conversation will be uploaded to our YouTube channel where you can view the full archive of this series. And now to introduce today's guest and host. Currently based in Berlin, Rosa Barba is a German-Italian visual artist and filmmaker. Barba is known for using the medium of film and its materiality to create cinematic film installations, sculptures, and publications, which inquire into the ambiguous nature of reality, memory, and landscape. She has received numerous awards and recognitions, most recently the Calder Prize. Her current exhibition, Drawing the Infinite, is on view at Loring Augustine in New York City through May 21st. And our host, Francesca Pietropaolo, is an Italian-born art historian, curator, and critic based in Venice. She has held curatorial positions at the Walker Art Center, MoMA, and many other places. She is the author of numerous essays and is the editor of Ellsworth Kelly and Writings on Art 1980 to 2005 and Writings on Art 2006 to 2011. And the first of a 2-volume anthology of writings by Robert Storr. She's also an editor at large here at the Brooklyn Rail. And we're so lucky to have these amazing guests here with us today. And I would just love to pass the mic over to you, Francesca. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eleanor, for this very nice introduction, and welcome to everyone who is connected with us today. Thanks so much to Brooklyn Rail and to Loring Augustine for organizing this event. Grazie infinite to Rosa Barba for being with us. I'm really thrilled to be hosting this conversation with Rosa. And I would love to start by discussing with Rosa the current exhibition at Loring Augustine, which is on view through May 21st. And perhaps we can already show Eleanor the first installation view from it. It's titled, as you said, Drawing the Infinite, and it brings together a selection of films and film-based works which span the past decade, because Rosa works in film and with film, in that she employs also the essential component of cinematic language. So, for instance, the projection, the film strip, the projection screen as her own materials. She tends to isolate them, bring them to the fore, while usually they are invisible in the black room of the cinema experience, and she reconfigures them in space very carefully in a subtle way. And I think one fascinating aspect for me about her work is this continuous and ever-changing dialogue between the film themselves she makes and then this multimedia installation she very carefully creates and stages, where we really have this experience about image, sound, light, language, movement, all being sort of interwoven. So to begin, Rosa, I would like to ask you if you can talk about this dimension to your work, this staging, this almost performative gesture that you create in the space by bringing together works in different media around this exploration of film, but also notions of time and space. And I'll just add that you reflected a lot on this very interesting idea about an anarchic organization of space, particularly starting from the cinematic dimension. So it would be lovely to start hearing you talk about this aspect of your practice.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Francesca, and thank you very much, Brooklyn Rail, for this invitation. Yeah, maybe starting from what you just mentioned with the anarchic organization, it's something I've been thinking about and working with. Since a long time. I was always interested in creating a spatial experience with all the cinematic elements and taking all the elements apart, but then bringing them together in a way that the audience and also the way you engage with the film can open up new possibilities. Here in this exhibition, for example, Drawing the Infinite, also the title very much plays with this idea of how I use my camera to start with, to make the films like a drawing instrument. It's mostly handheld, and it has this performative aspect of how long I can hold the camera physically, making these decisions on how to draw this subject that I'm interested in, which are often inscriptions in landscape that we leave as a society. And then this gets translated in many different medias. Maybe to speak about the image we are just looking at. This is a drawing that is made by a sphere that we will see later. Is a sphere of thousands of typographical letters that I put together as a visual landscape, a kind of reconfiguration of language. So also there, I'm interested in this kind of exploding of the possibilities of language and trying to create a new rhythm with this visual approach, and then using this instrument to draw with it like I would do with my handheld camera. And so the sphere is really heavy, and also a film camera is often, so it kind of determines then when that shot is done and when this drawing is finalized. So this drawing, like this print, is made in one go, and it stops when I cannot move the sphere anymore, and then I roll it out of the canvas. Yeah, and this kind of infinite idea of a loop is coming back also in the exhibition space. So I do show my films on the loop devices. There is this idea that we can mediate or meditate, and with this loop process, we can look at it, we can travel with it, and it kind of transports us or helps us to transport our mind and our thoughts into these other spaces. And also how the screens are then suspended in the space, that we can also circle the screens and see the images from both sides.
So there's a sense of circularity in your work, right? I'm thinking in terms of both recurring themes, the continuous loop, this sort of perpetual now that you were evoking. For instance, in the image we're looking at now, there's on the wall this kinetic sculpture, in between sculpture and drawing again. It's within the light box. A 35mm film strip is tightening and softening. We'll see later in an excerpt from a video documenting your show, Rosa, how it moves and the sound that it makes as it functions. But there's these beautiful lines that we are looking at when we see it moving, and it's almost like looking at a drawing taking place under our eyes, which I think is very beautiful. So it's quite fascinating how you use these elements of the filmic language, both in terms of a conceptual approach and an approach through their materiality, of which you underline to me also their fragility in a way, right? Like those film strips could maybe get broken at any moment, or there's also the analog format of the film with its sort of memory embedded in the time-based medium as opposed to digital film. Can you say something about that too? Like, how did you get engaged with film in that particular 35 millimeter, 16 millimeter format that you have a preference for?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I started really already even before my art studies, which was situated between art and film, where I was free to explore and navigate between the forms, or bring the film into this more open, not black box space. But I was always yeah, fascinated by this idea of or working with the materiality, and yeah, and in a very sculptural way early on, and also this idea that the film, there is not a real algorithm that we can impose to the film. There is always the flicker, there is the light that is kind of like making its kind of imprint live, and bringing to light this through light, making this image visible to us, and this fragility, and there is a lot of playfulness that I'm also interested in, because I feel like, yeah, how play is very important as a philosophical ingredient as well, and this way how the material makes these drawings that are very unpredictable, and we can't really program that, so it decides very often by itself. And so I try to set those performative frames, and like in this kinetic sculpture, maybe, yeah, it's really like this kind of frames that set the action, and then there is a lot of a play, how it moves and what it does. Yeah.
And just the viewer wandering through the space encounters these subtle surprises, right? They're like flashing lights, or there's a play with color in other installations in particular that I've seen of yours. So I feel like there's also the attempt on your part to really open it up to the experience in terms of perception, of reflection, of the people going through it, right? That's also an important part of your practice, to sort of opening it up to an active role in terms of responding to the works and their presentation within the space.
Yeah, there is a lot of agency that you have to or can take as an audience, the way how you read the language works. There is a lot of language in the films, but then there are these pure language pieces, and also in the box that we just saw before, the light box, which is called Coupé C, which is a starting like film strip that is used to instruct projectionists where to cut or where not to cut. So I liked these starters, these countdowns from French cinema, where it says nearly like a little poetry, ne jamais couper cet amant, so never cut this frame, and then yeah, we look at this as text, and you read it always in from different perspective and so on. So, but the same happens then with the film that you watch and you read. You come in at different times. You decided your own rhythm, how to bring the text, but and the image and the sound. That is always very important for me in my work as well, to bring all these elements together. And yeah, that's maybe also this idea of this anarchic organization, that there is no one that is reading for you or watching or seeing for you. Like that was something I felt starting to make films early on, that I was looking for a different kind of cinema that is maybe beyond the idea of cinema, how I was describing, or I'm describing it, where there is not so much set points of how we have to how it's already yeah, seen for us, and to redistribute this possibilities.
So you tend to break this habit that we tend to have for linearity, right? In terms of time and a sense of progression, you rather conflate time past, time present, and time future, I feel. And then also in not having an established parcours, no? One way to go through your exhibition, as you were saying, is also you know, plays with that. I think it would be great, Rosa, if you agree, if we showed a little excerpt from the video of the exhibition, so that we can give full space to the sounds and the ambience.
Thank you.
If it starts. Eleanor, do you think we can watch it, or otherwise we'll go?
I'm sorry. It's playing on my computer and not to everyone else.
Oh.
I'm just enjoying it. There you go.
No.
I don't think it's coming through, Eleanor. Maybe I can help with the tech if we want to just keep moving and come back to this in just a second.
Sure, sure. Can we show then the next slide, which is from Rosa's film, Bending to Earth?
Sure.
Thank you, Eleanor. Because Rosa, I wanted to ask you about one of the two films in the exhibition. This is from 2015. The other one is From Source to Poem that you made a year later. And I think one of the characteristic of the film is the aerial view that you showed, and this delving into the landscape as a site of memory. It has its own history, but you beautifully push the line between documentary and fiction at the same time. And I wonder if you can talk about that, about how you made the film with a handheld camera, always from a plane. And this was shot mostly with desert landscapes in the US. And also this dialogue, this tension also between the experimental documentary language and a fiction narrative that you create of your own in layers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one of the films that I shot in the American desert that actually I started to film. I started to shoot my first film in the Mojave Desert in 2006, where I also encountered like I was on a residency and I spent a lot of time in the desert, and also it was amazing to meet the Center of Land Use Interpretation and have the possibility to go to a few sites with them. And this was a later film, so there have been a few works in the Mojave Desert, an abandoned racetrack, the long road, and a huge solar panel field, The Shine. And Bending to Earth was a later film where I'm circling with a handheld camera from a helicopter, several radioactive fields in different parts. Oh, it disappeared. Are you still there?
Yes.
Oh,
can you see us?
My screen left, but
maybe that's a moment where we do have the video.
I'm back. I'm back.
Okay.
Oh, you're back.
Thanks.
I'm gonna pull up the video.
Oh, you want to pull up the video first? Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, great.
Hello? Hello, hello? Hello, 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 hello.
One must imagine the transformation of epic forms occurring in rhythms, comparable to those of the change that has come over the Earth's surface in the course of thousands of centuries.
That was nice, Rosa, because we could see also the dialogue with the sound, the voiceover, the language. So to go back to the film.
Yeah. So there are this circles of several radioactive fields, and we hear a voiceover that is spoken by Laetitia Sedier. She's describing first, as a lot of my films start, as describing the documents, and nearly like a caption of an artwork. It goes into the materials that we see and how this construction is made. And then from there, it moves into a fictive layer. Here also there was a quote by Walter Benjamin about these layers that we encounter. So there is this moving into then a possibility of how to actually, what these places might mean to us in the future, and trying to understand them as an archive that we leave behind. Time is here also, of course, again, an important subject, because I'm trying to understand time not linear, but more as something like a geological time, like stuck on top of each other, trying to go into the layers. And also these sites will last longer probably than the Earth ever existed. And to think about this transformation, and if we will still understand what they will mean in the future, if they are depictable as what they are, and how dangerous they are at the same time. They are quite beautiful as well. Yeah, and the sound here, maybe it is also, so the voice is actually coming into a world receiver radio that then the voice travels from one frequency to the other, and it mixes with the other radio stations that are in the receiver. So it's a sort of broadcasting as well from that place, but at the same time from many other places. Yeah, also here the idea that it could be many different places in different time zones. Yeah.
And Rosa, could you say something about working with optical sound? Because your films are generally use that. Is there conceptually and both technically, is it something that really resonates with you?
Yeah, I mean that the optical sound on the material is printed on the material itself, and it's read then as with a light source, with a sound cell. It reads this frequency, and so it's also a sort of inscription onto the material that then gets translated through light. So yeah, maybe as a form, yeah, interesting. But of course the sound is the optical sound also then adds another translation from that source to what we then actually listen at. It adds another quality.
Another layer, yeah. And here, Rosa, we're looking at another still from the same film. Is just being presented elsewhere in Malmo, I believe in 2017. But it's a great, I think, image, because it concentrates on this beautiful text that we also heard being spoken, and introduces this element of language, you know, the white text over the red monochromatic space of the screen. One must imagine the transformation of epic forms occurring in rhythms. So again, this sense of repetition, but repetition is never the same thing coming back, comparable to those of the change that has come over the Earth's surface in the course of thousands of centuries. It's beautiful, I think, the way you also pointed this uncertainty in terms of the relationship of us human beings to nature. And there is an environmental concern, I feel, in some of your works in particular. Would you agree to that?
Oh yeah, I mean, it has been something, yeah, early on that I'm trying to explore, and trying to, yeah, maybe with the research that I do, in a way also through the camera, through going and filming and looking at specific sites that we where we leave these transformation or we behind, but also yeah, how we react to a certain environmental transformation. So there has been early films of mine, like Outwardly from Earth Center, about a moving island in the Baltic Sea, a Swedish island, Gotska Sandön, and how a community tries to stop the drifting of that island. So that was an early work, but this theme, yeah, comes back all the time. Also with a later film, Aggregate State of Matters, where I shot in Peru. And it was also built around the melting of the glacier, and how we as artists and filmmakers, or as thinkers, can maybe excavate a sort of a knowledge that is embedded in the landscape or with the people, that we can maybe conduct a different kind of research that might be useful, or at least to make us think in different ways. Yeah.
And you've often worked in dialogue with communities local to the spaces you have researched and gone to, right?
Yeah, so that there is, even if in these films that we see here at Luring Augustine in the gallery, like these two films, we don't see people, but there is a lot of conversation with people embedded in those films, and sometimes they appear in this voiceover text that is then read. So that is like coming out of all these conversations with people living nearby, or other anthropologists, or people I have interviews with about this area, and sometimes it is really part of the film with how the people engage with the landscape. Yes.
And here we're looking at a beautiful shot that pairs an image from Bending to Earth with two wax pieces that you've made in 2020. And the work is called Liberties. And I think it's a great way to, if we can go to the next slide, please, to your exploration of language at different levels. And you also have an interest in poetry, and particularly here, you are taking inspiration from a text by the American poet and writer and essayist Susan Howe, her book Liberties from 1980. And I love how on the wall from a distance, the work looked like works on paper, but actually you see very nicely from this view how it is actually a three-dimensional object, or at least there's that tension. And getting closer, you notice how the work consists in letters cast in wax. And I feel like there's a very nice relationship between this kind of work and the importance of language in your filmic production, because it seems like you do a sort of abstracting process, as you've done with the components of the cinematic space and language. So here you reduce the text, you fragmented it, and then you reduce it to the smallest element, that of the letter, and it's almost like a visual poem to me of either a lost language or a new language. There's like that mystery. Can you talk about how you how this work came to be and your relationship to Susan Howe too?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm a big fan of her work. Also, the way she uses language as mixing with primary documents, but also visual appearance, and then creates this kind of new language and new drawing somehow as well. And so I took inspiration from this book Liberties, and I looked at all the most occurring letters that she used, and then played with those letters, and created this kind of visual landscape with it, which was first casted, like first created a negative, and then casted with wax on this kind of wave, which could resemble a book page, but or just a movement, a wave, and so this text grows over several pieces, which is also something I have been from the beginning. I don't see any of the works as something that is completely finalized and stops there, as so there isn't, even though there is a frame, but it's not really framed. So somehow the language continues to grow in the next work, and some also with the films, there are these thoughts that are started, but then in a year later you you live with it, you grow with it, and it kind of continues into the next film. So I see that all very much connected, and also here in this exhibition in Tribeca. That's why I like when there are more works shown at the same time, also in different medias, how there could become, how I try to make a choreography, how different works, the moving works switch on and off in different times, and so you're kind of guided through the space. I mean, you don't have to, but there is a sort of other rhythm that is then kind of like embedded in the whole exhibition. Yeah, and here I liked also how they are placed next to Bending to Earth that we also just saw, and with yeah, this kind of language, different kind of language in the landscape of this radioactive fields. But then also we see a long shot of a radioactive field that is covered by snow, and it kind of, yeah, there is then a very
yeah, that's the image, exactly. Yeah. So there's a sense of danger in that landscape, but also beauty, right? Which often takes the form of an abstract language in your work. But to continue with this notion of not ending in a unique object, this continuous working or reworking in a certain media or through across different media, I wanted to ask you about the sculpture that we see here. And if we can go to the next, yes, thank you. So it's a language infinity sphere, and it is part of a larger series, right, of works, again, exploring language with also a reflection on what's become anachronistic ways of printing. So again, there's also a link to the book, is that you were suggesting through the wavy shape of the Liberties piece. And then we have a beautiful detail immediately after that shows how this letter press blocks that you used, they're arranged in no particular order that we can make out. I think not alphabetically, not another order to make words, but rather beautifully give the form its unity in a way. And again, there's this element of the sphere. Later we'll look at maybe the cube also. So there are these quintessential abstract forms that are very symbolic too, that I feel recur in the show as well. Can you talk about this work in particular?
Yeah, also here it is this, it's kind of an explosion of all the letters that come from a printer that, an Italian printer from Bari, where I got all his language from when he closed his printing shop where he was printing literature for 40 years. And I like this idea how the literature would continue to be printed in a different form, and so I created different kind of instruments to print with. So this is in a way, and it's also resembles, of course, the spheres of the typewriters, of the Olivetti typewriter machines, but then it is this rearranged language with all the punctuation marks and all the different fonts and so on, and I use this sphere to make the prints that we saw at the beginning.
Yeah, and if we go to the next slide, Eleanor, please, we'll look at that work, right, with the detail that shows the imprint on the canvas. So again, you're moving across different mediums or different support and materials.
Yeah, so there is this idea of this like following thought, and one piece that moves into a next, or translates itself into another format or media. And here again, this this
circular element. And Rosa, going back to the sculpture, the spheric sculpture, which is of metal, right? It's lead and steel. I just wanted to ask you, you were born in Italy and then you moved when your family moved to Germany. You moved there and grew up and studied there, and you now live in Berlin. But I wanted to ask you in terms of perhaps your interest or dialogue across time with arte povera, even in its very different kind of declination. This work made me think about Pistoletto's Globe from 1968 in very different materials, a different kind of poetics. But I was wondering in general if you had any interest in that generation, or Anselmo or other artists from the arte povera.
Yeah, I mean, I always was inspired by this generation, and I was also lucky to be in touch with a few of them, like Ettore Spalletti, for example, and so that there is an interest in this kind of ideas and forms.
Work. And then we can show again the Coupé Ici work from 2012. And there's the detail that you were referring to, Rosa, where we can sort of read where it says "N'est jamais coupé cette amorce," never cut this short strip. It's really, again, as you were saying, this sense of oblique smile that runs through your show, which I think is also very, very powerful, and the playfulness of it. And here in the details, I feel like we really see that line drawing happening, right? Which is really magical. And then we could show, I wanted to ask you about a recent exhibition that you had at the the Neue National Gallery in Berlin in 2021, when it reopened after, I think it was 6 years of renovation. So there's also this very important dimension to your work, which is the dialogue between architecture and film and your artistic practice in general, which really, I think, showed in that project. If we can see the video, thank you. Thank you. And can we go to the installation view of that same show, Eleanor, please? Rosa, I love how in this show you created a structure that is, to me, at the crossroad between sculpture and drawing in space, this steel frames, this sort of abstract, yes, drawing, which is inspired, I know, by an unrealized project by Nice, the Brick Country House project from 1964. And you've said that in a way, architecture is beyond the element of building a three-dimensional space, is also actually a temporal process, so something that builds itself in time and also through the perception, the experience of those who are in its presence or go through it. Can you tell us about that? Because I think it's a very interesting aspect of your work.
Yeah, I do always work very much with the architecture of the space I am showing, or sometimes it's the architecture around the space I'm showing, or I'm trying to build a connection with it, with the inside outside. But here, this metal structures is something that I had firstly conceived for an exhibition at the Schönkunsthalle in Frankfurt, and which was a vertical stage inside this public space that belongs to the museum. And so they were on all these different layers. The works could be seen from the different floors of the museum as well. But then I have reworked those metal frames into different architectures. And here at the Neue Nationalgalerie, I found, when I was working on the exhibition in the Bauhaus archive, these floor plans of unrealized projects, and especially this one of the brick house that I took as a blueprint to translate this into the exhibition space. So basically, you would recognize still the rooms and the whole foundation plan of this building, and it becomes a sort of shelf system, a drawing in space, but a support system for all these different works. There are 15 works in total that are distributed in this shelf system. And I did produce a few new frames that were actually working. They had the same scale as the windows, the very iconic windows of the Neue Nationalgalerie. And there are all these different works that are then sitting on platforms or next to it, or projecting through those frames.
It's beautiful. And I think we have an image of that plan that you said you found in the archive. Yes. So again, this interest towards abstraction as well, right, Rosa?
Yeah.
And a modernist kind of abstraction.
Yeah. And also here, there was, I mean, it's a bit more difficult to get this through the documentation, but it was a whole choreography. So the exhibition was sequenced, and so the works would switch on and off. And there was also a recorded live piece where the drum set of Jet Taylor that I've been collaborating with would direct the film projectors when they would switch on and off through shutter systems that would react to the drum kit. So that was also one work of 15 works that were choreographed in this architecture.
Fantastic. And talking about your sort of choreographing in space, I wanted to ask you about another project, also from 2021 at the Atelier Calder in France at Serchet. And the image on the right is from that space. And I think we also have a video, but I wanted you to talk a little bit about this series of the weavers, where using the film strip, you create mobile paintings / sculptures. And then we'll look also at the short excerpt from the video, because there were sound pieces as well that you showed on that occasion. Can you talk about the genesis of this work and also the importance of Alexander Calder for you? Because I know you also made in 2017 a film on one of his mobiles, a film called The Enigmatic Whisper, I think.
Yeah, that conversation or exploration of Calder's work came through an invitation by Victoria Brooks, who invited 4 artists to introduce them to the Calder Foundation to make a portrait of a Calder piece. And I proposed to shoot in his studio in Roxbury, where there was also one work suspended from the ceiling, but also then it became a portrait of the studio that was kind of untouched, or still the way he left it. And that was then the kind of exploration of the work and the workplace. And then later through that I was invited to do this residency recently, and was working in this beautiful studio, which is also nearby of a village that still traditionally works with basket weaving, where I encountered different techniques, and then I tried to use those techniques with the film material. So it is actually, it's just suspended screens, like I would do it in my exhibitions with the cinema screens as well. And I mean, they become screens in a way. They're very light reflective, and they're woven. So it's a film that I shot is different colors, and then trying different kind of patterns, and so they become screens as well. And also here I'm always interested in architecture when it's like here the light and how the space changes during the day. So these works look very different during the day, and then later I was also playing with artificial light, then they become sort of these projections, which were similar to a work that I was developing years ago at the Palacio Cristal at the Reina Sofia, where I'm working with the sun as a projection device, and the movement of the sun during the day, and how then it creates this other cinema.
Should we show the excerpt to give a sense of that presentation, if we can, if the video goes?
Nick, I'm having the glitch again if you want to show it.
Thank you, Eleanor. Rosa, it was wonderful, the detail that I saw of the projection over the smaller weaver. So this layering, you know, of the different languages, you know, film and the actual objects. It was really beautiful. There's another project that, if we have time, I'd love to discuss with you. This is a printed cinema, and it is an ongoing project, like many of yours. You started it almost 20 years ago, and there was a new edition, right, that just came out, and it's this notion of a readable and portable cinema, you say. So you use the form of the book in a way that invites reflection on the films you make. It's meant also as something that gathers materials once the exhibition is over in general. And I think it's also conceived as having a free distribution, at least in a given time period. So there's this element of printing, and again we have the notion of a text and language and film, and then also the idea of distributing this portable cinema. Can you talk about this project?
Yeah, it started nearly 20 years ago, where I proposed to an institution, instead of making an exhibition catalog, to start this project with me for making it possible to make a few of those first initial printed cinemas. And they are always each issue is linked to one film project, and gathers kind of research or secondary material, but a lot of film stills as well. And each of them is like loose folded posters. So there is also this idea that one can put it back together or put it, edit it yourself. And I was also interested in this idea of how to distribute this kind of this film. So usually they always appeared with a specific exhibition in that specific location, and are then distributed there, and then they disappear usually afterwards. And I've been collecting some of those from each issue, and we just released with Dancing Foxes in Brooklyn. Dancing has a box that has all of them together, but it's also an ongoing project. So one kind of subscribes to the idea, and it's this box has a lot of space. So each time a new printed cinema is produced, one gets this next edition and can add it into this kind of into this folder. So also this idea of continuation and not finalized. So there are 22 since now. Mm-hmm.
So far, so there will be more, right?
I guess so.
Well, I think it's time to open it to questions for Rosa. Thank you so much, Rosa, for your conversation.
Thank you, Francesca.
Yes, thank you so much, Rosa. And thank you, Francesca, for your amazing, thoughtful questions. We do have some questions from the audience. Our first one will be from GE. GE, feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Thank you so much. And I am so thankful for this introduction to your work. It's so haunting for me to just take in just a little bit that we've been able to get today. My question is, your work seems to have such kind of like intuitive and poetic kind of Verstehen, that understanding. How do you decide on how much revelation to allow?
Yeah, probably there is an intuition with that as well. But I try to for each work to set some parameters, which I call a frame of facts, and especially with the films, of trying to work with facts, which I call also documents of which is the gathered material that I bring to the studio from the research trip, but also shooting. A lot of things also, of course, happen when I'm making the films with the situation I'm encountering. So new unpredictable things happen as well, that then I need to digest in the editing and work with it. And that's, of course, in the editing is when you make a lot of decisions also, how much you reveal. And of course, I try to always not, which I cannot offer any solutions to these problematics, or also not to not kind of want to explain, because that's also not what I think I can do. And I also, I would just like to bring all these ingredients together, which is often, the research material based on text, images, and sound, and try to, make them bring together into this hybrid form. Of course, I'm then also always interested in trying to find new experimental languages with the filmmaking, and also with these other works. So it's a very experimental translation then as well.
Oh, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful question, G. Thank you, as always. Our next question will be from Nick. Nick, if you want to unmute and ask.
Sure. Well, I also want to thank you both so much for this wonderful conversation. And Rosa, I'm thinking of the book that you published with Hatcha Kans a few years ago, and my question is about anarchy, and to ask if you could maybe talk a bit about how you relate anarchy to cinema, and how the concept or utilization of anarchy can offer new ways of thinking or relating to cinema.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Well, this kind of what I understand here as an anarchical approach is like to put things upside down, to like make things do other things that we think they're supposed to do. Like, for example, picking some pieces like space length thought is what we saw in the Berlin video before, is a typewriter that is sitting on top of a film projector and is typing a text slowly onto the celluloid and just projecting one letter after the letter. So there is a new machine that is dealing with cinema and language, and doing both things, or elements are doing other things that they were normally or how they would normally perform. And just to pick another work, Stating the Real Sublime, where the projector is hanging on its own celluloid and it's just balancing in the space. So and trying to formulate that white frame, so it's just a blank film that runs through. So these things about taking their meaning or bringing new meaning by kind of freeing them from their usual function. That's and also what I described before, the way the whole elements of the projection system, the machinery, everything becomes part of this and visible to that kind of constellation that we can reconfigure freely or ourselves, and so I see that as a possibility to create more activation thinking spaces and yeah, probably hopefully produce new mental spaces by these kind of by this kind of reconfiguration, which I think is a very self-organized system and self-organized by every viewer. And yeah, I feel that this is something that could hopefully help us to take agency again and to kind of, yeah, take this in our hands into our mental, take these decisions ourselves, how we look at imagery and how we work with sound and listen to it and so on.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for that question. Thank you, Rosa. I think our last question will be from Raven. Raven, take it away.
Hello. So my question is, can you talk about some experimental filmmakers and those that were influential to you? For example, maybe Jonas Mekas or any others?
Yeah, thank you, Raven. Well, maybe just to pick one that was very important when I started to shoot on film was Me and My Brother by Robert Frank, where it kind of helped me to understand also why I felt it is so important to the importance of the camera in how it made that it was introduced to this observation of being part of a community or being part of this, yeah, of this gathering. And I mean, my very first film called Panzano was also something that made me understand how the camera can suddenly produce this, the presence of the camera can suddenly produce this other constructions that we would have not imagined. So yeah, in Me and My Brother, there was, yeah, also this moment where then yeah, there is this moment where the protagonist starts to speak, which was not speaking before. And I felt it was also through this kind of poetry that was created and this, yeah, this space with the camera. Yeah, that was one film that was important for taking on that journey. Yeah, but then of course there were so many others as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raven. And thank you, Rosa. And thank you, Francesca, once again. It's been a really amazing conversation. And I'm so glad we got to see those videos as well. I think that really added a lot. Here at the Rail, we do, of course, have a tradition of closing our community events with a poetry reading. And today I'm thrilled to welcome our poet laureate of the day, Lynn Xu, to the stage. Lynn was born in Shanghai, China, and is the author of Debts and Lessons and those ashen heaps that cantilevered vase of moonlight. Those are her two published books. And she is also the co-translator of P Poems by Lao Yang from Circumference Books. She teaches at Columbia University and co-edits Canarium Books. Lynn, thank you so much for joining us. Turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Rosa, I love your work so much. And, you know, I've been reading your books, so it's really kind of wonderful to hear you talk with Francesca in real time. And I've never seen any of your work in person, so I'm just, yeah, I got to do that. I mean, it's so hard, you know, but yeah, I just can't wait to see it in person one day. Okay, so I am, and also with me here, I have a little one. I'm sorry, so she might make some sounds. But I will read a little bit from, oh gosh, it blurs. And those ashen heaps, that cantilever vase of moonlight, which is a book-length poem. And I will read two sections from that. And as the procession before me fled, one seemed to know as one whose years the mask and smokeless altars interpose, incessantly numerous as the dead from whose forms shadows pass. And of that great crowd rearranged, the thrush and thrift and edelweiss, a shape whose garments in the changing seasons as yet formless against the trembling, like the lifting of a veil. As in autumn time, the leaves borne onward by what through eternity re-echoes, echoes still in untilled fields, the soft and ceaseless song, unchilding, unfathering, unanimous, a shape all light, thoroughly half spoken, a singing, so to speak, that passed through wood and worm before the breathless bee, and having labored timeward through remaining time, what over the bent world life must borrow, that farthest nothing, that incandescent plural of the unopened handful. There the sun lingered, and soft as wind it passes, pure moon of the doorway, pure zero in the diadems of the coffer's edge, the empty cart clattering, 1 to 10, 10 to 1. All things unclose their portions in the hour of distribution, of the balancing of accounts, and those who fight for a few scraps of food to renew each day unguarded by the angels. At last, all life passes through the smiling air. Windows open noiselessly, as one that in a silver vision floats, already Decembering with the aggregate of time's eternity. And life, in that black or luminous square, life lives, repeating thriftless shadow beneath the few branches galloping through night. Clear stream, wooden horse, blue sword, awaiting the few small acts of cowardice still to come. That's the end of that section. And also, I just am so excited to discover this series by Brooklyn Rail that you guys do, because, you know, I ran into Ty, they invited me, and then just in time, when I checked out the events page, I saw the TJ Clark reading, the Tim Clark reading, and he was my teacher at Berkeley. So it was like, I was like so happy to see him come and read poetry. Anyway, you guys, this is so great that you do this. Okay, the last thing I'll read is the last part. It's a postscript. And it starts with this Blake quote, and the angel that presided over my birth said, little creature formed of joy and mirth, go love without the help of anything on earth.
Amazing. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
sorry. Thank you so much. I'm not done, but that was just a Blake quote, but is that okay? I mean, that's just an opening Blake quote, and then my poem comes after that. Is that okay if I read my, okay, I just want to finish this. It's not very long. I open my eyes as a sunflower. The world trembles through my body, longitude, latitude. I am dancing, dancing, dancing. Born dancing. At last, I am here in the thickness of 5 vertigos, the 5 in the middle, like the interior of 4 o'clock, or Friday between 6 and 7 in the intones of the tamarind. Tamarind. Its green syllable unfurls my moon-like face, beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. I close my eyes and open them again within myself. The great God with many hands churning, churning in a temple whose walls are no longer there. And there, just now, is the totality, an infinitely delicate delicateness. My birth postponed by the punctual inquisition of the wheel, by all four faces of the charioteer, and yet I simply think myself up. One by one, I open the doors, confronting the empty universe for the entire duration of the counterfeit. And the wheels, my masters, endlessly generating passo umbilico, passo nada, tele, pathos, passage from cadaver to corolla. The eyes of the corpse, when I open them again, pure as tiny children. I am speaking your language without actually being you. Man, child, justice, mercy. Reality is so close, and yet it is the point of no return. Reality, where the name eats the body and holds it upright. Now, where were we? Oh yes, dancing, like the procession of jewels connecting one vow to the other in the splendid firmament of time, or the brightness it veils throughout the double of myself. The white blossom on the silver bell made of tin plate and the purest grays of wind. It is 5 by all the clocks, by all of the 13 cliffs in the rectitude of its folds, and the sprig of asphodel is passing from the seller's hand. It is for you, this world, the streets, the vinegars, the farewells and the stations, and the trains coming and going with glistening windows, the train passing with fruits and flowers. With the oyster's patience, I followed the egg into its interior, into an afternoon that could have been anyone's. Okay, now I'm done. Thank you so much. And thank you, Eleanor and Nick and Raven and everybody who's here. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm so glad we got to hear all of those poems. They were incredible. Definitely gonna check out your book. So thank you so much. So glad we got to meet you. And again, of course, thank you, Francesca and Rosa. As always, our recordings of our NSEs are on our YouTube archive, and we encourage you to check all of those out. We also encourage you to support the Brooklyn Rail. Over the past 22 years, we've brought together art, music, dance, film, theater, literature, and thoughtful social and political meditations in our publication and also in our events, just like the NSE here. So we do always, as a nonprofit, need some support. So please check the chat for a link to donate. And join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern for a reading and conversation with Barbara Henning, Martine Bellin, Peter Buschjager, and Anselm Bergen. And you can now turn on your microphone and say hello and goodbye as you leave. Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Rosa.
Thank you, Rosa.
Francesca. Thank you,
Wonderful
Lynn.
poetry reading.
Lynn.
Wonderful.
Thank
Ciao,
Thank you,
Rosa.
Rosa. Thank you,
Grazie.
Francesca. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grazie mille.
A presto.
Ciao, Francesca.